And we are live! Hello all and welcome back to the Savage World Summer Showcase! My name as always is Mr. Harlan Guthrie, and I am here once again with my lovely wife, Mrs. Jo Guthrie.
Good evening, everybody.
And we are joined by three fantastic guests tonight. We are joined by the one and only Brandon Verhalen. Brandon, tell us a real quick little introduction about who you are.
I always freeze up when people ask me that.
Pressure.
Well, I started Star Anvil Studios because I like gaming, and I can't say anything. When you ask me that question, I can't answer.
That's fine. Star Anvil Studios, that's enough. We are also joined by Ross Watson. Ross, what brings you here tonight?
Oh, man. Well, I've done a lot of stuff in the game industry, probably best known for all the Warhammer 40k role-playing game lines, Star Wars Edge of the Empire, Torg Eternity, but Savage Worlds fans probably know me best for my Accursed setting, or my work on Freedom Squadron, or Last Parsec, or Lankamar, or Savage Worlds Rifts.
Holy crap. So just a little bit they might know you from. And we are joined finally by Ben Burns. Ben, where would people maybe know your name?
Well, I started New Comet Games, and I'm probably best known for my Call of Cthulhu books that I've written. So,
Fantastic!
Also done some stuff for the top secret New World Order, and some D&D stuff as well. So now I'm dipping my foot into the Savage Worlds realm and loving the game system.
Well, we are so excited to have all three of you here with us tonight. Listen to the audience; they're going crazy. Jesus. Of course, the Savage World Summer Showcase is our weekly show where we bring you some of the amazing creatives in this amazing community. How many times can I say amazing? Just wait and see.
At least one more.
Yeah, it's amazing how many times I can fit it in here. If you are first to watch these, great time to jump in. You can always check them out at any point and any time. We try to stream every Thursday night at 8 o'clock. Tonight is 9 for a special exception. I don't really know why, but I'm easygoing, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I guess to start off, Brandon, I don't want to put you on the... Do you want me to tell you I can go after and I go to someone else?
No, we got to lean into it. We got to start a buzzer sound every time we say Brandon.
Brandon.
That'll help a lot.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Just jump
I'm
to
ready.
it. You're okay. Okay, yeah. So, Brandon. Star Anvil Studios. We see the name above your head. Obviously, that's enough for us to clue it in. Why don't you give us a little bit more information now about maybe what Star Anvil Studios hopes to achieve and what you're offering right now?
Sure. A couple years ago, I was, a long time ago, I got into Savage Worlds, original Deadlands game, and came back, and I just really liked the system, and I had this game idea in my head for years. I wanted to bring it out, so I thought, how hard could it be, to make a game? I was wrong, but I put some time into it with the setting for a while. I worked on quite a bit. That had to be put aside for a while, and we ended up working on Knights Arcanum, and that's the big Savage World setting we're kind of focused on right now. And there's some of the art for it.
Wow.
What is Knights Arcanum?
Yeah, tell us a little bit about Knights Arcanum. That's exciting.
So Knights Arcanum is kind of like, remember He-Man, Thundercats, old X-Men cartoons. My idea was, what would superheroes be like in a fantasy world? And as I worked on it, I kind of realized superheroes in a fantasy world were kind of like He-Man and Thundercats, these guys with great powers, do all this crazy stuff, and they're heroic. So it's kind of a bit like, I call it Arcana tech or arcane magic technology. Yeah, there you go. There's the mascot there.
Yeah, that's Uno. He's our mascot, like Orko from He-Man.
That's awesome.
And
does the head rotate? Like, how does that work? It looks like it changes expressions based on...
It's kind of got like little electronic emojis on his face. He doesn't talk.
Very cool.
That's so cool.
So, anyway, this is just one of the things that we're really working on bringing out, and this is going to be the first one for Savage Worlds.
Wow. That's exciting.
So you work directly with our other panelist, Ross. Mm-hmm. What is your working relationship like?
It's funny you ask.
Yeah, funny you ask. Ross is great. I was looking for someone to help me. So Knights Arcanum for me was a lot of notes, like 60 pages handwritten, typed. It was probably like 20 pages out. I gave him a lot of notes. And I got a recommendation from Sean Roberson that he would be great to write. So I got in touch with him. We started working. We work so well that officially we can now say, Ross.
We are now partners of.
Hey!
So Star Wars Studio is Brandon Verhalen and Ross Watson. We are the two heads of the studio.
Wow. That's exciting.
Wonderful. So we have both of you, both of the partners.
Partners in
And-
crime.
That's right.
Partners in crime, hopefully success. Now, you do have a Kickstarter that you're planning on doing at some point. 2023, am I right in that?
Yeah.
Correct.
And
Yeah,
this will be
that'll-
for Knights Arcanum.
Right. That's the first we'll do for Savage Worlds will be Knights Arcanum in 2023-ish. Haven't given the exact time frame yet, but soon.
That's exciting.
Very
Okay,
exciting.
we're going to talk a lot about that because obviously Knights Arcanum is sort of the big thing that we want to talk about, especially on the Star Anvil side, amongst the other things. But Ross, you've mentioned a lot of credits already on your resume. I'm impressed. I'm awestruck. I'm agape. But I'm also
Are you
curious.
amazed?
Yeah,
Probably amazing. Yeah, that's what I'm
amazing. Yeah, you'd be amazing. I'm curious. Yeah, I mean, so you've worked on a number of things. You said people would maybe most recognize you from Warhammer. Can you expand on that? Why would they recognize your name from Warhammer?
Well, I was lead developer and lead designer for a number of the Warhammer 40K roleplay game lines: Dark Heresy, Rogue Trader, Deathwatch, Wrath and Glory. I was deeply involved in Black Crusade and Only War as well. I think the only one I never got to touch was Dark Heresy Second Edition, but I was involved in everything else. And that's
Second edition. It's no good anyway. I'm kidding. I have
it's
no
fine.
idea. That's just a joke.
It's quite good. But yeah, that's what I spent a good chunk of my career working on, that and some Warhammer 40K video games as well. So.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Warhammer is one of those things that has long since been sort of the holy grail of, from what I've heard through cultural osmosis only, like this huge, overwhelming, like world building. Everything I've ever seen about it, when people explain, even little tidbits, it becomes so impressive. Everything seems really, really detailed and has a lot of great history to it. How do you navigate that as somebody who's written in that world and sort of been a big part of there? Is that intimidating? Because as an outsider, it feels really intimidating.
I mean, it's a big IP. I've worked on a lot of big IPs. I've worked on the Lord of the Rings and Star Wars. So you just kind of get to navigate it and find. I've been a fan of it. Like, I've read like a bunch of the novels. I've played almost all the games. And when you're immersed in it as deeply as someone who really loves it like me, I mean, it's not incredibly hard. I mean, think about your favorite TV show. If you've probably watched every episode, you could probably do a lot of the things I've done. So yeah, it's
But that's a lot of TV I gotta watch then.
We don't have
Go ahead, Joe.
like unlimited time for.
I mean, I do, but not for reading. I mean, let's be real. No, I'm just kidding.
Now I feel like, obviously, modern RPGs, D&D, were kind of derived from wargaming back in the day. I feel like there's still kind of a pipeline between the wargaming hobby and tabletop RPGs. Do you find that some of the same kinds of people that you knew from back in your Warhammer days are now interested in your current projects, or do you find that they're kind of siloed, in your opinion?
Yeah, there is a surprising amount of overlap. When you play a war game, you are kind of imagining yourself as the general commanding your guys on the table, and there are many different ways to kind of get a deeper appreciation for your army and for the context of the battles that they're in. And one of the most immersive and deep experiences you can have with an IP is a role-playing game, because it puts you right there in the thick of it. So there are a lot of people I've met over the years who are both, they have armies and they play the tabletop, but they also just adore the role-playing game.
And you nailed it right there, because people see these worlds and they want to immerse themselves in it. And that's kind of the best way through RPG, which segues well into, I think you mentioned that you also worked on the Edge of the Empire role-playing game for Fantasy Flight, right?
That's right.
Which we both have played, both Joe and I, and it's a great system and it's a great game. And I think that was one of the first, I mean, obviously D20 Star Wars had existed previous, but Edge of the Empire, I think, did a really great way of picking a niche of such an intimidating force, the Star Wars universe, and saying, okay, well, here's where we're going to do it. It'll be the outskirts, it'll be the edge, it'll be sort of the back alley type things, which obviously, especially, coming back to Star Anvil and your working relationship with Brandon, obviously these are areas that you both seem to like to play in, not the obvious stretch, but sort of the back alleyway. Is that a proper way to say it? How interesting, I guess, how exciting was it to get to work on Star Wars? Are you a fan, I assume?
Oh yeah, big fan. Ever since 1977, I've been a real big fan. We, at the risk of going on a can of worms, there's a lot of stories you can tell about the creation of Edge of the Empire, but one of the best is when we all sat around and we were deciding like what we were going to do with the Star Wars license, and just over time a consensus emerged that we want to play scoundrels and smugglers and bounty hunters. And then I asked the question, I was like, can we release a game about Star Wars with no Jedi in it?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we can do. And we all looked at each other, and there was this pregnant pause. You hear a pin hit the floor, and then we all just sort of were like, yeah, we're okay with that.
Which honestly, from a consumer standpoint, I think was one of the smartest moves that game. And obviously, it was all you, so well done, Ross. No, I'm kidding. But genuinely, it was a really smart play, because I do think, we all have looked at Star Wars and said, yeah, I want to be a Jedi. But I think it was presenting the option of, okay, but maybe you want to be an ex-Stormtrooper. And that made it really appealing. So I think that's a really exciting sort of facet to go into. I'm excited to have you on the show, Ross. But Ben, now you've already mentioned, you sort of got my ears up because you mentioned that you worked on Call of Cthulhu, which is one of my favorite role-playing games. It was the first role-playing game that got me into proper role-playing. Can you tell myself and the audience a bit about your sort of, not just experience, which you've already sort of highlighted, but sort of maybe what makes you excited about this hobby and what you look for in the next project you work on?
Oh, okay. Well, I started role-playing way back, D&D in the 70s. So I've been role-playing for years and years. But I got into Call of Cthulhu. I dabbled a little in the 80s, but then I got really back into it about 10, 12 years ago with 6th edition and started writing. I ended up being the default keeper and writing a lot of my own stuff. And I'd written something, and I'd started getting into publishing and made new Comet games. So I looked into publishing it and reached out to Mike Mason and Mike O'Brien from Chaosium. And so I'm licensed with them now to do different books. So my first one out of the box was Star on the Shore, which was a sandbox adventure. And then I ended up, after that, I did Devil's Swamp and Time, which these were all 1920s. But Devil's Swamp is set up in Bridgewater, Massachusetts. If you've never heard of that, there's something called the Bridgewater Triangle up there. And it was like putting stats on stories. That's all I had to do. It's an amazing place. You should look that up. The Hockomock Swamp there. And then I did A Time for Sacrifice, which was a Mayan themed. So there were 5 different adventures in that, and they were Mayan themed. It and Devil's Swamp both won an award for writing RPG.
Hey,
so I was
congratulations!
Really happy with that.
Wow.
And let's see here. Then, and my latest one just came out was Corsairs of Cthulhu, which is Cthulhu in the Golden Age of Piracy. So it's a whole time period as well as a full campaign in there. And the playtest took a full year to get through. So, and I got to do tons and tons of pirate research. So that was a lot of fun.
So, I mean, obviously you have Mayan, you have pirate, obviously there's the 1920s is always a big heartthrob for Call of Cthulhu fans. It's sort of the place to set it. But is there a particular thing that drew you to the pirate setting, or, how do you find inspiration in maybe moving a Cthulhu scenario to a particular era? To commit the resources and time to that must be massive, Yeah,
it was a lot of time. But I've always been a huge pirate fan, from way back when I was a young kid. I loved pirates. And that was one of the things I always felt like Cthulhu was missing. I've played Invictus, and I've played the Gaslight and the West and Future. Even got to play with Sandy Peterson. And I've done so much with Cthulhu, but I've never had anybody run a pirate adventure with Cthulhu. And I thought, I think this is just a perfect mix. And so I asked about doing it. Chaosium was all for it. And so, it came out just a couple of months ago. It's a 300-page book. It's pretty exciting. Yeah.
That's very exciting.
That's very exciting.
And now you're doing some work for Savage Worlds.
Yeah. So I've done a lot of different role playing games here. Ross, I'm a big fan of your stuff. I played your stuff.
Oh, cool.
And at first I didn't recognize the name. Now I do. But, I recognize the titles for sure. So I've always also been a huge fan of the game Paranoia, and I've always felt like that it could be improved upon and made better and made. The biggest complaint with Paranoia is you can't keep a campaign going with it. And so I was trying to figure out a way to do that. And I had started, like Brandon said, I started writing my own rules for this. And I'd been working on this for a year or two. And somebody played in my Zeta Complex game and said, you should really look into Savage World because these rules are almost identical. And so I did, and I was really surprised how close they really were. I mean, obviously, there were differences, but it enabled me to streamline things and make things run a little smoother. Plus, it filled in a lot of gaps of work I still had to do that you tend to put off to the last minute. But Savage Worlds fits the system great. So I've been using it for about a year, and we are ready to launch with the official Kickstarter next week. It's a ton of fun. It's kind of a mix, a little bit of Paranoia in there. If you ever played Gamma World, you can throw some of that in there. If you ever read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, throw that on top of it. And that's
a strange mix right there. I like that.
I'm sold.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. It's a lot of fun. There's lots of death and dying. But there is you have clones that keep coming back. So you get to keep trying and trying and trying again. So that's kind of the idea behind it. So
that's fantastic.
Alluring concept.
Very alluring. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I'm really excited to expand on that.
Yeah.
Brandon, so tell us, okay, we know Knights Arcanum now. We kind of have an idea. It's coming 2023. We know sort of the outskirts of maybe the idea. Dive us into what's exciting for a player when they, I want to say boot up that game. I know it's not because I roleplay all the time and I'm not a moron, but I'm going to use it anyway because I'm this far in.
But they're using Arcana tech.
Yeah,
sure.
We can use that language, right?
Same thing.
Same difference. So tell us as a player, what's the most exciting thing about starting off a new campaign in Knights Arcanum?
Well, I mean, if you liked any of those, for those of us that are old enough to remember the older cartoons, or just even those who enjoy that sort of cartoon superheroic action, I mean, it's going to use the SPC. So you're making a superhero, but you're putting it in that setting that's not quite the same as your standard superhero game. I mean, we got flying ships on islands that float in the sky, and you've got, as my one friend put it, he says, I never liked superhero games, but I can get into this one because I think it has sort of a focus for them. Like, you're this Knight Arcanum, you're this hero, you have this organization that you're kind of part of, that kind of, or you can be a part of, you don't have to, there's different ways to do it, but you have this sort of like purpose in your character versus I'm going to go stop the bank robber, which is a perfectly fine superhero kind of game or whatever. This is a little more sort of that epic kind of thing you get to feel with. So I don't know, I just kind of like that superhero in a fantasy world setting with flying ships and
no, that makes sense.
Crazy machines.
There's such a push now because of the, some would argue oversaturation of like comic book movies, that people are really trying to ground them in reality. You want to see, Batman where he can be justified by sending an electrical charge through his cape and all kind of stuff. So I think the need to really get that comic book side of it, that kind of fun, zany Saturday morning cartoon feel, even though comic books are prevalent right now in various medias, that still feels relatively untapped. And I think it's a difficult target to hit. It's a you don't want to Joel Schumacher it. You want to get the right feel of comic booky Adam West style, where you can still have fun but still feel awesome. And there's not many comparisons that kind of nail that vibe, but the artwork for Knights Arcanum seems to get that across in such a good way. How difficult was it for you, and Ross to bash the idea around to make it kind of exactly the way you want? How many rules are there to not do and to do?
I'll let Ross answer all the rule stuff, but let me just tell you about the art for poor Ron Root, the guy who did all the line work and started doing the art for me. Okay,
Please do.
When I first brought this to him, I was like, I'm going to do fantasy and superheroes. He's like, okay, and he started doing it. I said, yeah, but do this. But yeah, but more superhero. But yeah, but more superhero. And I said,
Oh, no.
look at this and that. And Ron was like, I swear if he wasn't bald, he was close to it by the time I was done. But he got the idea after a bunch of times, after iterations of art. And then I brought on Annie Ghosh to do the art because he has that more cell shade or more super bright kind of look to it to really complement the colors. And that was the art. And I had a whole bunch of art and a whole bunch of notes. And then I went to Ross, and I'll let Ross finish it. But I'll tell you, I put Ross to the ringer, too, because he was like, you said this was this. I said, yeah, but it feels more like He-Man halfway through. And he goes, and stuff like that. And he goes, but you said this. And so by the time we were done, we kind of figured it out. And I'll let Ross explain the rest of what he had to do at his end.
So it sounds like the art came first, almost.
Nope.
Before...
Yeah, I do a lot of art first because I have to visualize. So when I'm writing stuff, I have a reference to go back to. I do it exactly the opposite way everyone will tell you to design a book.
No, I love that.
Hey, you got to do it your own way, especially this, in this day and age. You have to sort of find what works for you and double down on that.
Well, the genre is so informed by like the comic book, right? It's so visually appealing that it makes sense that you would start with source material that's image based, right? And then sort of create around that.
It works for me anyway. It's just more expensive.
And then obviously bringing on Ross, if you
was
want...
a godsend.
I was gonna say, I mean, is there, there are a few better options than somebody with his. I'm just gonna say rap sheet.
I didn't even know his full resume, rap sheet. When he came on board, I just heard he's a good writer, and I knew Sean because I've been working with him a lot. We've done a little bit of art for like the Palladium for him for the Rifter, for example. Right. And then he's like, I need a writer who's good, who can. And he's like, well, this guy here, and then there we go.
So Ross, how much did you have to just toss out
throw
before starting
in
from
the
scratch?
garbage?
No, I'm kidding.
Well, development's always a really, Joe, exactly. Development's always like a big ball string, and you kind of peel away the layers. We started at a place that was kind of like X-Men 96 meets a fantasy setting. But as we kept working on it and started building the world out, it started to transform through the discussions that Brandon and I were having into far more of a Thundercats He-Man vibe. And I was like, this is really working. Like, there's a lot of things we can really do here to lean into that Saturday morning cartoon feel with superheroes in this cool setting with the flying islands and stuff. And it was my job to sort of put some interesting mechanics to the scene and kind of help you build a kind of character that would fit. So we've got in Knights Arcanum, we've got some really interesting, at least I believe we have some interesting methods to do that. During character creation, one of the things you do when you sit down and you make your characters, you also collectively make your arch enemy. You get to build your Skeletor that you will then be facing along the way.
That's a cool idea. I have never heard that before. I like that a lot. So you can kind of you start at the beginning knowing who you're already fighting against.
Exactly, and you do it as a group, so it's a collective activity.
I really
you also
like that.
You get a mascot, which we sent. We have a picture of our
the robot.
There's rules for the mascot.
Awesome.
What you can basically get a Benny once per session if you have a cool moment where the mascot does something silly in the background, but you can also get that more important conviction point if you can find a way to sort of do that thing where He-Man convinces Orko to believe in himself. If you can do that with your mascot, you can actually a point of conviction out of the little guy, which is pretty fun.
Wow.
And then we've got this idea that the heroes, the Knights Arcanum, they're not born; they're actually chosen. There's this group called the Oracles that appear in the dreams and visions of people that have been gifted with these powers, and they have different oracles. Like there's one that sort of, it asks you to be an avenger like Batman, and there's another one that sort of asks you to be a selfless savior like Superman, things of that nature. So you can sort of choose how your character came to be chosen and join the Knights Arcanum through the oracles.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
There's some really
Yeah, it is.
interesting concepts you got there, which I'm really excited to unpack. I mean, these are things that were really benefited by, obviously, understanding the system, because as you mentioned, and you used the exact example of Skeletor, like having that from day one is so, in a way, kind of anti what a lot of role-playing game masters are used to, which is, here's my story, I'm going to build up towards this big bad, or I'm going to have this sort of reveal that it was the guy you ignored in the first town and all that kind of stuff. And I kind of love the idea of just taking all the wind out of that and being like, no, you're going to decide who you're up against. And it makes it's a totally different vibe, which I love, because it does really harken back to that Saturday morning cartoon, but it also sort of adds more fun in it, rather than the players knowing they need to hunt down and kill this bad guy. It almost leaves space for players to be like, oh no, let's let him get away this time, like let's not worry too much, or maybe I pull my punch at the end because you helped create that. And why wouldn't you want to fight that guy in another scene, or leave the jail cell open one time just to kind of have a little bit of party conflict? I think those are some really clever concepts. Are those just things that came up as the two of you sort of bounced ideas back and forth, or were they things that you'd wanted to do in games for a long time?
I mean, kind of both. But we had there's a section in the Game Master's advice on how to run Knights Arcanum where it talks about exactly what you're saying. Like sometimes you want the villain to just like survive.
Yeah.
And it basically talks to the Game Master and says, you can bribe your players with bennies and be like, I'll give everybody a benny if this guy manages to slip away for the next encounter. And players are pretty good about that kind of thing. They'll be like, oh, cool, yeah, let's do that.
I mean, good players in the right system, and especially, like a system like this sounds like, for me at least, someone who's played for years now and has, there's this sort of progression, as I think we have as role players, where, when you sit down to play your first role-playing game, you're playing the character you want to play. You're playing a human fighter, let's be honest, and you're doing what you need to do to survive, and you kill the bad guy. And then, you get tired of that, and you play a zanier character, and a zanier character, and a zany character, and then that goes on for a number of years, and then you kind of get tired of the zany characters, and then you're looking to the system to give you more options and give you sort of more ways that you can branch out. And I mean, I can only speak from experience, but for the people that I play with now who have also played the gamut, they're looking for more ways to let the bad guy go. We don't need that moment anymore of like chopping off the head. We're definitely looking to carve the stories out of our experiences that are more fun, that are more kind of clever and quirky, rather than just the defeat the evil. And I think what you're tapping into is that desire from veteran players and newcomers alike, but veteran players especially, that are kind of like, okay, I've killed enough big bads in my life that I'm happy to kind of do a cat and mouse for a bit. I think that's a really clever concept, and I think that's really, really fun. And I'm excited.
And even so, the big bad guy's there, but you won't always face him. He's going to have his minions, his crazy henchmen that you got to kind of work through. They're
on Skull Crusher Mountain.
Yeah, some kind of mountain that's got a name with it, and Castle Charcoal Skull. No,
nice.
Now, I feel like superhero stories are kind of unique in that, like, that beginning, the like genesis of a superhero is so uniquely important to the story. Is there something that is built into this Knights Arcanum to kind of highlight how people get their powers, or whether they're mutated or born that way, or is that like orchestrated into part of the setting that GMs can help their players uncover, or how have you addressed that idea?
Well, Brandon came up with the main concept of how everybody gets their powers. It's part of a divine essence that basically has infused nearly everyone in the world of Caber, which is our setting. So basically, there's a percentage of the population that have a power. They're called imbued, and that power could be something minor, like I can turn paper yellow if I want to.
Ooh.
There's a even smaller percentage.
Could you imagine being that power? Everyone,
There's
look.
a smaller percentage that is that has actual like useful powers, and those guys can go on to become villains or Knights Arcanum or various other things. But I mean, what you're talking about is like, why? I think you're talking about, more of the origin of like, why am I a hero?
Right.
And part of that is you're just born with that power, but also we have the oracles, which is a great way to talk about, your motivation in joining the Knights Arcanum is because you were chosen by one of the 4 different approaches, and those are matched up to the card deck in
Cool.
the suit indicates which oracle, and you have a little interlude, if you know what those are. You basically tell an interlude about how you were chosen when you.
Oh, that's awesome.
I love that.
My father was killed by a man who could change the color of paper to yellow.
The yellow.
And I will hunt him down. I mean, there's a villain story in there, too. My brother got all these powers that I can only change paper to yellow.
Ooh.
Great for parties.
That's really exciting,
right.
and I'm excited to continue to dive into this. But Ben, I know... Oh, my camera went out of focus. I know that you are equally a experienced veteran when it comes to all this kind of stuff, but you also want to share a picture for us. Can I bring this up?
Yeah, go ahead. So
All right,
we have brought on Ed Bickford from Metal Robot to do the main artwork for the book. So this is our first illustration that he did for us. You can kind of see there's a lot going on in the picture, but
Yeah.
So
That's
It
awesome.
looks so good, though.
I love the quality of the line work and the color. Very evocative.
Totally.
Yeah. So we have fallen in love with Ed's artwork, and so he's going to be, I've contracted him out to do. I think the whole book is my plan. So I'll probably have another artist doing, line art or something. But Ed does excellent work, especially his color.
Well, it nails this wonderful era, of comic books to a degree, like of art, I should say, that where you have sort of, you're playing with a lot of different sources in a way, it has like a 70s, early 80s vibe, kind of a little bit of, and the color palette sort of is evocative of those, those like neo sci-fi 50s art pieces where they're kind of like showing the landscapes with like these big towers and lots of circular features. And I love picking a specific style and playing within that space. Was that sort of a big motivator for you as well, stylistically, to want to play within a specific space?
No, not specifically. I'm not a huge. I don't do art so much as
unlike Brandon, you're not starting with the visuals and moving into the game.
Right. And so for me, I have the game in my head, and then I write the game, and then I bring in artists to come in and help visualize what I see in my head. For some reason, stick figures won't work anymore, so I hire people, and I try to get very particular about what I like, for the genre I'm writing in. So if I'm writing in, top secret, I go for that more spy, type of look. And if I'm doing the, Call of Cthulhu stuff, I go for that horror feel. But for this, it's supposed to be kind of a zany, wacky, dark humor type game. Then I think this artwork fits what I was looking for. And it took me a while to find, Ed, and we just kind of stumbled on each other at the last convention I was at, North Texas RPG Con. He was there. And so he came, I saw his stuff, and I'm like, I got to talk to this guy. And then he came by my booth, and we just started chatting, and I brought up Zeta, and he was excited about it. And so I got him to do a couple of quick pieces for me before I launched. So, yeah.
It's really fantastic. Excited. It reminds me of like even the old school AD&D book a little bit too. Some of his, the artwork from his website, that thick line sort of, not cartoonish or cartoonish. Right. I don't mean that in a demeaning way, because it works so well. It feels like it's a slice of life in a way, which I love.
Yeah. And,
so you've done a lot of genre hopping, time traveling in the products that you've created. Where do you consistently find inspiration for all these disparate ideas, or do you? Is it all coming from inside your own brain, or are you inspired by media or people in your life? Where do you come up with these things?
All different places, books, movies, just out of my crazy head. I've been doing this stuff since I was probably 4 years old. We would buy a game, and I would say, "Oh, these rules are terrible." Let me rewrite them.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
I've always had a head for this stuff, and I always, I come up with, I think good ideas, and so
I think we all would agree that they are great ideas. So you have no worries there.
But sometimes everybody always has that self-doubt. Is other people going to like what I do?
Yeah.
But I really just have a great time doing it. I've done everything from fantasy. I love D&D. Matter of fact, I still play D&D every week.
What edition?
Yeah. But sometimes you got to stretch out a little and do something different, And a matter of fact, I may even, I got some other stuff in the future I'm looking at doing. I'm already writing stuff that before I even get Zeta out the door. But I've already got the main rule book is like 95% done. I already got the first mission for it. I'm writing a second one right now. So those are, going to hopefully be out. The main rule book and the introductory mission will be in the Kickstarter available. And so it's just one of those things. I like to do a plethora of different genres. It keeps me interested. I get bored if I stick on one thing for too long. So
you obviously find inspiration in many different places, but when you're writing in a particular setting, i.e. pirates or whatever, do you then surround yourself? Do you find yourself turning to, books or medias? Do you try to keep in the headspace, or do you leave that for work and just continue life as normal?
No. When I was doing my pirates book, I watched everything pirates I could find, put my hands on. I listen to audiobooks. I really don't have time to read.
Nice.
If I'm reading, I'm usually proofing what I've written.
I think audiobooks still count as reading.
We're past the stigma.
Yeah.
So I love audiobooks because I can do it in my spare time when I'm running errands or when I'm doing, driving to work or whatever. Absolutely. And so I got every pirate book and stuff I could, get on in my audio library, and I listened to so much. And then we did some tours. We went down to the coast. We hit a bunch of pirate museums and did a pirate cruise. And
That's great.
I did. I immersed myself in the pirate
very immersive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And,
so what the hell did you immerse yourself with when you're working on this new project? Because obviously you mentioned like Hitchhiker's Guide, but
mainly just what the thoughts in my head on this one.
I was gonna say, Douglas Adams, mind you, on repeat listenings or readings, maybe it just gets zanier and zanier. But
I did listen to Hitchhiker's Guide, the full set again.
Nice.
But there's several books in that genre. I don't know if you've ever read them. Murderbot series that's out there. It is really good, and it's about a security robot that becomes sentient and gets, and he just, it's a whole series of books. There's a lot of genre out there that fits kind of in this. And my setting for Zeta is pretty wide open. I mean, there's really no limitations to what you can do with it. And so Murderbot Diary. So Saltomancer, if heard of it. Thanks, John, agreeing with me on those. I thought they were awesome. But the whole genre allows you to do a lot of different things with it, especially because you're up on the surface now. You're no longer just trapped in the underground facility. The world has gone through multiple, Armageddon situation, end of the world scenarios.
Yeah.
And so this is mankind's last hope to try to survive in this mixed up, muddled world. And it's awesome. A crazy place out there.
It's interesting too, because you've mentioned, Ed's work, kind of like the art really clicked for you. And to me, it reminds me a lot of Judge Dredd, which equally has that scorched earth kind of feel, and there's a bit of zaniness in Judge Dredd, more so the comics than the really awesome
Yes.
movie with Carl Urban.
I went back
And awesome
reviewed my
movie with-
Judgment.
and the other dude too, Sylvester Stallone. But yeah, that's exciting. That's awesome. Brandon, you were mentioning in the chat down here that one of the things that you were looking for is kid friendly. Did you want to expand on that? That's something that might be of interest to.
I saw
people.
someone mention that Trey G mentioned about it's more kid friendly, and as Ross and I went through, I said we wanted to really keep it in that because I have kids, and a lot of people want to play, and we were leaning one way, a little more hardcore at first, and I said let's make this a little more adult. I said, well, not quite that adult,
Yeah.
let's not. I wanted to keep it more in that vein of like, could I play this with a 10-year-old at the table, and be like we're watching a Saturday morning cartoon? So the rules that we're gonna lean into the rules that are like, the bad guys are gonna survive. It's hard, you're not really. The goal isn't to kill the bad guy. It's to stop the bad guy. Now, of course, people may play it any way they want at home, but the book is going to lean to that kind of vibe and story for this, as opposed to other projects I work on.
Which I like, and you're not sacrificing. So often you see games that are trying to be mindful of a younger generation, but they sacrifice a lot of maybe even the artwork to cater to them. But what I like is that you can still make a product that looks mature and looks adult, and yet still sort of is comfortable at any table or at PG-13 table, which I think is an important line to walk. You're not going full kiddie with this, and at the sacrifice of no product. You are keeping it in line with your vision, and also being mindful of where it can be played, which I think is a level of like due diligence and intelligence that's I think is important. Not enough people think, okay, but who's going to be able to be sitting at this table? Are there words in this book that aren't going to be appropriate for that and stuff like that?
Something you could like a parent can enjoy, or just enjoy without the kids, because it's adult enough that the story's not like crazy, for a 5-year-old type cartoon, but yet enough that the kids like, oh, that's cool, there's action, and it's not too kidified, but not so adult that it's like, I don't want my kid to play that. And like, it's a little too much,
What's the best superpower in your opinion? Because we have a 5-year-old and he's always talking about like what his power is and what he's going to be able to do, and the acid and lasers and stuff. I mean, he doesn't know what the best ones are. He just fixates.
For me, regeneration.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you don't get old very easily,
I
which
think
means all
that's
those
it,
aches
right?
and pains will be gone for me. No more achy knee, no more
No
achy
health
back,
problems.
no health problems. You don't die real young, and I could, work twice as long when I become rich. I don't know.
So you still die, but just slower.
Slower and less painfully
Okay.
till the end, and
Okay.
it all falls apart.
So like regeneration, like 200-year lifespan, 1,000-year lifespan,
200 to 1,000, somewhere in the middle there is
somewhere in
fine.
between. And what's your sort of save point? You know what I mean? Like if you got your head lopped off and it grew back, does it grow back as like a baby, or do you have like a save point? Like it's
Well,
20.
see, that's the question. If Deadpool gets his head off, does he grow back a body and a head? I mean, that's the question. I think it's,
Starfish rules.
yeah,
Starfish rules? What
I
are
think
starfish
the head
rules?
grows the body. That's where we have to go with that, because
I think you have to have a certain amount, like a vital amount of mass, and then that part regrows.
And
But
that
Yeah.
supersedes.
I think if you
any
cut a
smaller
little
mass.
piece of the middle off of the starfish leg, it'll grow a whole new
You
starfish.
know, we have starfishes over there. Let's
Let's
cut one
ask the
up.
starfishes in the audience.
What's scary about that is you cut a bunch of pieces of me off. Would you really want a bunch of Brandons running around? I don't.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then we would have
No.
so many more RPGs.
Okay, but put it this way: Brandon would be so happy because you would always have a table willing to play with you. You know, you'd
Yeah,
you'd be in sync.
I could send someone to go to work, and I could stay home and work on the game.
All right,
so.
That's
which Brandon wants to go to
right.
work today, and which one wants to stay here and play games?
You guys have to arm wrestle
Roll
to
it,
figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. Roll. What about you, Ross? What about your superpower?
I think Brandon nailed it. The fast healing. I mean, like, especially as I'm getting older, I'm like, man, I would love to have, just be able to heal from stuff. That would be
Yeah. Flying is not great when you're like 75 years old, right?
Yeah, you're just gonna be peeing on people by accident.
Well,
I mean, who knows? I would. What about you,
that wouldn't
Ben?
be an accident.
What's your superpower? if you
Yeah,
could
Ben.
choose?
Well, not to repeat the regeneration, then I I think flying would be like the most awesome thing in the world. I would go with flying. So.
Come on, it's awesome.
That is, I mean, I don't think there's a wrong answer here. I think no matter, I think it
Swords for
speaks
arms.
to your personal what?
Swords for arms.
Spaghetti
for
fingers. Just spaghetti out of your fingers at all times.
Makes it hard to write though, which is one letter.
Those are the wrong answers.
So Narts Arcanum 2023. We don't have a date and time yet. Just kind of a general year, but we're at what 70% done probably. I love the succinct head.
Well,
That's why they're partners now, because they both do the same wishy-washy. I can't tell you that right now.
Ross has done a ton of writing, and I think we've got now 10, 20, 60 illustrations or so already done. So I would say that 60% is done.
Mm-hmm.
And
Nice.
Ross will tell you what he thinks about the writing, but with the art and the writing together, we've got a good chunk already done.
And we're going to have a jumpstart coming out probably early next year. If you wanna
Nice.
take a look at that. It could be late this year. It's just going to depend on.
I slowed him down. I made him work on this other project I have in the works, and then, so now he's had to like, okay, Brandon, you want me to do that too? Then we're gonna.
Whoa! Another project? Can you
Mhm.
talk about this one?
Details.
Well,
Too secret?
It's not Savage World, so I wasn't really going to focus on it. It's the
We can
Secret
talk
World.
about it. Go ahead. Let us know what's
We
up.
are interested in interviewing you as designers and creators,
people.
even if it's just like, oh, I'm writing a novel.
We
We're
know
digging for details here.
Yeah.
Well, the
It's
Secret
the
World
Secret
is
World RPG. Yeah.
it's based on the Funcom video game, and that one was just has to be out this year because we've had the license for a little while, but a couple setbacks kind of put me back on it. And when I got Ross on board, and he could really organize it, as a let's get this out. And that one's conspiracy theories set in the modern world.
Fun.
I also heard you have
vibes.
like a really cool trailer for it too that someone made.
Yeah, some amazing guy put that trailer together. I don't know, it's some HG initials or something like HG Wells.
Harlan is many
Yeah.
talented.
Brandon and I knew each other actually before the stream, and I've done a few Kickstarter video trailers. I did your Saints and Sinners as well.
Yes,
which
we
that was
also-
through Alan's company.
That was before I had partnered up with Ross, and I was looking for
Yeah.
ways to get things rolling as I was learning this business. And Alan was a great guy who partnered up with me.
Yeah.
We've got Saints and Sinners done in the Tiny D6 system. That's finished writing on art's done. He's finishing up writing rule stuff on it, getting it together. He's at Gen Con now, so I'm sure at some point in time it'll be out. It's just a matter of you got to get it all right because you don't want to put it out and then not have it be right. So
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
I went from
So-
nothing to 3 projects in a couple of years.
I mean, Secret World, obviously exciting. Narrates Arcanum, clearly exciting. You are a busy person. What about you, Ross? Besides the Star Anvil stuff, which we're now fully versed in and excited about, what are you? Is there anything else you're cooking?
Anything on the
else?
back burner?
Any stock going?
Secrets?
Oh yeah, I've got tons of projects. I'm excited to say that Accursed is now a officially licensed Savage World setting for Sigil Entertainment, and that will be kickstarting late 2023. I've got another project with Sigil, which is called Dominions of Steel, which is a setting that is basically.
Oh yeah, Dominions of Steel. That's right. I've
heard of it.
heard of it. Yeah, I think on Sigil Spotlight, I think I spoke about
Yeah,
it.
we talked. Yeah, we did. Boy, it's been a while, but we did talk about that.
Have you and I
Yeah.
talked before?
Yeah, I think we did. Yeah. Gosh,
Oh,
Oh my
man.
god. Did you remember? Did I
Small
forget? Oh no.
Worst host ever.
No, both of our backgrounds were different. I'm sure.
Was I there?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, I love Sigil. Sigil's been really great to everybody, and they've joined Pinnacle. That's right. I don't think that's.
That's right. We've been running Sigil's actual play stream for the past year.
Yeah, we ran S5E, which was, and then we ran Hereafter, which is also another Sigil product. But Accursed, that sounds really exciting. What's the pitch line on that one? Do I know that?
Okay, so Accursed came out in 2013. The first edition did. It's actually pretty robust. You can find it all on drive-thru. But the core idea of Accursed is that you play monsters that have been cursed by witches that have taken over the land of Morden, and you have to sort of redeem yourselves by fighting back and helping free the land. It's Hellboy meets Solomon Kane is the elevator pitch.
That's a genius idea because I know before I took on the mantle of forever DM, I would see these cool monsters that the DM would throw at me and think, like, I want to have those abilities. I want to have a burrow speed and be able to spew fire out of my mouth. And
She talks about it often.
I do. It's in my sleep. No, but monsters are so cool. And I think that's part of the reason why superhero games are also really appealing, is because you get that dynamism of these like spooky, weird, gross abilities sometimes. And sometimes you just want to be the monster, even if you're the player.
Sometimes
so that's
you
a
wanna
very
be a
cool
monster.
idea.
Yeah,
Well,
I saw
looking
your
forward to
accursed,
that.
I saw the accursed image that Aaron shared on Facebook just the other day. I know because I saw it. I saw the logo and I was like, "Oh, that's cool," and I didn't realize that was what you're working on.
In Accursed, you can actually you have to decide, because there's a track that you can decide to become more monstrous, to lean into it, or to become more human and sort of reject your curse. And that's actually part of the whole role-playing experience, is you deciding along the way, like, am I going to be a monster, or am I going to try to go back to being
Oh, we got to play that. That sounds great.
There's not only a great game in there. I see a musical. Am I monster? Am I man? I think there's some great role playing
see it.
musical opportunities here.
I will hire you to write all the songs.
Done. So Accursed. What's another? I mean, a project that it doesn't have to be the farthest along, but you've mentioned there's so many. Is there anything else that's really exciting? Maybe it's only at 1% completion, but anything else that's really bubbling for you?
You know, some of the stuff I'm working on, I really just can't talk about too much, but I will say I'm working on a new Cosm for Torg Eternity with my friend John Watson. So 2 Watsons on one project. That's kind of interesting.
Watson and Watson.
That's right.
That's.
And I've got a bunch of super secret stuff that I just can't divulge other than that. So.
I mean, I think Super Secret is exciting enough for all of us.
We won't make anyone mad at you. We won't pry.
It could be anything if it's super secret. It could be,
He's been working on a really
Gold.
excellent pie recipe that he's not ready to break to the world
No, it's
yet.
nothing to do with RPGs. It's just the best peach pie.
Well, that's one of my favorite questions that we ask our panelists,
Oh, we
and
gotta wait,
I
hold
want
on.
to I want
First-
to talk to Ben first.
Yeah, Ben first.
But we're gonna circle back
So
around. It's
Ben,
not
what
about pie.
are you've already mentioned and alluded to working on something else. What is the next project?
Well, let's see here. Just yesterday, I outlined a new Call of Cthulhu adventure. It's a modern day one.
Yeah.
But I was also just, I hadn't really looked at it too deep or thought about it, but I know there's the Savage Worlds Cthulhu setting is kind of not really there for Suede, so Cthulhu may draw me that way.
Ooh.
I don't know.
You mean the Call of Cthulhu may draw you that way? Because it's calling you that way?
Well, Call of Cthulhu, I think, is licensed with Chaosium, so it can't
That's
be
true.
that.
But you could do like another
The
sort
Drawl
of.
of Cthulhu.
No, like
Yeah.
it has to be a modern thing, like cell phones and Cthulhu. I guess that doesn't really do the
Cell phones and
alliterative
Cthulhu.
thing.
That's
that we-
true. Yeah, it could be like it could be
The
text
call.
of Cthulhu. WhatsApp notification of Cthulhu.
Yeah. Anyway,
Tweets of Cthulhu.
And one other thing I'm excited about is I'm not writing it, but I'm working with Scott Robinson, who was co-creator of Bunnies and Burrows, and he is coming out with a game called Mongooses and Mambas, and it's about you play mongooses down in the South Central Africa, and it is a fantastic game. He's reached out to me to help produce it and get it out, and so we are working with that. So Scott's a great guy, and I'm really excited about that one. So
I'm excited about that one.
That
with the
sounds great.
tagline, "Have you ever wanted to be a mongoose?" ...
yes, yeah. I mean, if you like the Bunnies and Burrows stuff, this is right up your alley. But mongooses are actually a fascinating animal.
Yeah.
I know you don't want to pit one against a snake.
No,
Not if you're the
actually,
snake.
Yeah, the snake will lose usually.
That's what I mean. Sorry,
Ricky Tikki Tavi.
Yeah, you
Yes,
don't want to
this
pit
is
one against
Ricky
a snake
Tikki
you love,
Tavi
I
is
should say.
right along that line.
Yeah.
I've done some reading on mongoose. Of course, he actually has a doctorate on this kind of stuff, so he knows this stuff
Wow.
inside and out. And
He's a doctor of mongooses.
Doctor
Of zoology or
Yeah, I don't know exactly what the degree in.
We'll
but
just say he's a doctor of mongooses.
Mongooses. Let's go with that. Doctor of mongooses. Oh, you probably got it.
We say it with love. Don't worry, Scott.
Yes. But
that's exciting.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. So we'll be looking out. We'll be looking out for that.
Yeah,
so,
he's been play testing it for about a year. It's a real simplified, easy.
You mentioned that a few times. So you're definitely one of the playtests for a long time. Get all the kinks out, which I think is a really important thing that not enough people do, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Anyway, so those are kind of things. I have my D&D campaign book. It's supposed to finally be out. There's one more adventure. I did something called The Adventures of Black Ridge Island, and 1 through 5 are already out individually, and number 6 is written, playtested, done. I just haven't had time to actually get it out yet, and so then I'll probably come out with a full book that has all of them.
You're a busy guy.
Upgraded to 5e, and this is just kind of my spare time job. So
I mean, you're making it. You're making us look bad if it's just your spare time job.
I actually have a full time job still, and actually I'm a scoutmaster for a Boy Scout troop too. So.
Yeah,
nice.
That's awesome.
Scout on.
Mad respect.
That's the thing, isn't it? I don't remember.
Yeah.
I used to be.
So
a Scout.
It's a special needs only Boy Scout troop too.
Oh, that's lovely. That's fantastic.
That's great. Good for you.
So we always like to sort of round down by, as Joe alluded to, asking, we'll start with you, Brandon. What are you, and this does not have to be an RPG, but it can be. It doesn't have to be a movie, but it can be. All we want to know is, look, we all consume shit every day, 24/7. But every once in a while, we get stuff that we're really into, whether it be, just a painting or a book.
We always
like to spread the good word of what else is exciting. So, Brandon, what are you enjoying right now in any medium whatsoever that you are really digging that you want to share? Could be Beyonce's new album, could be anything in between.
I mean, I'm a watch movies nerd kind of guy all the time. So my main thing is I'm just keeping up with the Marvel TV shows mostly because we sit down with the kids every Wednesday night. We watch those, and
nice.
I really enjoy that. Other one I wouldn't watch with the kids was the Jack Reacher series on Amazon, and that was cool.
Yeah, you dig that, eh?
Yeah, that was totally crazy and insane. But of course, I like to see the good guy beat up the bad guy. And
yeah.
How's
Who
that?
doesn't?
Makes
me
happy.
You'd recommend the Marvel TV shows, which the Miss Marvel, is that one of the ones?
Miss Marvel just ended. And,
I heard it was really good.
It was good, and She-Hulk's going to be great because I love the sense of humor. And it looks like they're going to keep that in there where she breaks the fourth wall like Deadpool does and just talks to you. And then gets back to the action, so that's going to be fun.
So the Marvel show and Jack Reacher TV series, 2 things that you'd recommend.
Cool.
Yep.
Cool. What about you, Ross? What are you enjoying?
Well, those, but also Ted Lasso is just
yes.
Ted Lasso's the fucking best.
Are they coming out?
I swear.
It's okay. We're allowed.
We get one.
That
was it.
Have they come out with another season yet since we watched?
Yeah,
Two
no, I don't
seasons
think I think we're up to date. I think we're waiting on the next season. But Ted Lasso's so good.
Great show.
What a brilliant character. I mean, Ben, have you seen it? I don't want to spoil anything.
No, go ahead.
Okay, but I'll just say this. I think it's in season 1, but the dart scene is probably one of the best. It's so well done. It's just so well done for what it does. And I was like, man, that's a good scene. It gives you exactly that tangible taste of satisfaction that is so hard to nail. Mm-hmm. And it works because of all the expectations that are kind of thrown out the window in that scene. So great recommendation, Ross. Anything else?
Yeah, I just finished reading a really good book. It turns out like 2 other people at the dog park were reading the same book, which is funny.
Aww.
In the Shadow of Lightning is the title by Brian McClellan, and it's just fantastic.
Is that an audiobook or was that?
No, it's a book. I mean, I'm sure there's an audio version of it, but I read it as a book.
I love it's a book.
It's a book. I'm writing it down. I'm always looking for, honestly, I've been really into the audiobook thing lately. And,
Ooh, 4.43.
Very cool.
Writing it down.
Brian McClellan. Nice.
All right. Very cool.
And what about you, Ben? What are you just digging that you want to share with people?
Well, obviously the one everybody loves, Stranger Things, just wrapped up.
Yeah.
And,
so good. Right?
Who's your favorite character?
I mean,
well, they usually die.
Fair enough.
Eddie.
Oh man, I couldn't believe he went down. But he went
That was
down
an
the way.
epic end, though.
Good.
Oh yeah, it
Ross
was.
is
D&D
doing
nerd
this,
doesn't
like-
watch that show and fall in love with that character, right?
Yeah,
Like,
you
oh, come
cannot
on.
help
That's
it.
so good.
Love that show. So many great characters in there. I think they're doing a few things they don't need to do, but and I hate the year lapses and stuff.
I
I mean, they
know.
haven't even started the next season writing
I
it yet.
know.
It's like, come on, guys, what have y'all been doing?
Keeping us in anticipation. So, Stranger Things, what else would you recommend?
And I'm finishing up Ozark. I think that is an outstanding
nice.
show.
Yeah.
And there's so many great, powerful characters in there.
Yeah.
And you see, you're like, oh, I know this is going to happen. But then when it does, it just shocks you. You're like, oh no,
It's
I can't
really
believe we
good.
just went in and shot those people for,
Yeah. To me, Ozark is what I wished, and I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for this because a lot of people, it's their favorite show. But Ozark is what I wished Breaking Bad would have been. But I much prefer Ozark to Breaking Bad because there's a lot of parallels. But I
There
think
are a lot of parallels. I loved Breaking Bad also, but my wife didn't watch it. But she likes Ozark, so
Yeah, to me, I didn't like Breaking Bad as much for many, many reasons. But Ozark to me is getting all the things that I wished Breaking Bad had gotten right. It gets them right, in my opinion. But anyway, that's awesome. Thank you all for joining. Before we go, let's one last time highlight everyone and tell them who you are again, where they can find you, and where they can follow you for stuff that's coming up. Brandon.
Brandon, Star Anvil Studios, and you can definitely follow us on Facebook. Obviously, we're easy to find there. We got Discord, Twitter, whatever works for you. I think it's in some links up there already on somewhere was shared. So,
Brilliant, excellent, Ross.
That's right. We are at Anvil Star on Twitter. And you can find me at therosswatson.com, patreon.com/therosswatson as well. And I am at the Ross Watson on Twitter.
Nice, the one and only. And Ben.
And so Ben Burns, New Comet Games, and you can find us at New Comet Games, Facebook/New Comet Games, www.newcometgames.com, and signing up for our newsletter is really probably the best way to stay in touch with us. But you can also, whenever something's coming up, I tweet and I put it on Facebook and do all sorts of stuff. You can also, most of our stuff goes through Kickstarter, so you can follow us on Kickstarter as well.
Amazing. And as always, my name is Mr. Harlan Guthrie. I have an audio drama, a Lovecraftian horror audio drama named called Malevolent. If you like Call of Cthulhu or anything that Ben's been talking about tonight, definitely check it out. You can check it out at malevolent.ca. It is nominated for the Canadian Podcast Awards, so I'm really excited about that. It is just surpassed 500,000 downloads as well, so it's I'm pretty proud of that. Joe, my wife.
I'm Joe Guthrie. I am the GM and host of Dice Shame, a D&D actual play podcast. We are going to be releasing episode 150 at the end of August, and we also have a special announcement about joining a podcast network.
Which we can just say now because they won't watch this.
Can we?
Yeah, both of our shows are part of the Rusty Quill Network, which you can, if you've ever heard of the Magnus Archives, we're part of that network as well. So you can check us out there. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Thank you for watching us tonight. We will be back next week. And as always, have a wonderful summer and good night. Bye-bye.